Hey guys, today I'm going to make a video about peripheral neuropathy. Peripheral neuropathy is a very close subject to me because I have had it. I think I probably still have it, not to as bad an extent as I did, but I'm doing very well with it, and I wanted to offer some advice to people that may be suffering from it so that hopefully they could maybe apply the things that I've learned to themselves and treat it as well. So we'll start off with what it is. Peripheral neuropathy by the Mayo Clinic is defined as it's damage to the nerves that are outside of your central nervous system. So your central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord, and your peripheral nerves are the ones that go down your arm and your trunk to your hands and your feet. And peripheral neuropathy can result in numbness, weakness, pain. But that's what peripheral neuropathy is. A ton of people, like it's extremely common, a ton of people have it. And it's also called, peripheral neuropathy is also called neuritis. Yeah, peripheral neuritis. What causes peripheral neuropathy? There are several things. The main things are diabetes causes peripheral neuropathy because when your sugar gets out of control, sugar is a damaging thing to your free flowing sugar in your blood. High blood sugar is a damaging thing to your nerves. I'm not exactly sure of the mechanism, but I know that sugar is a major factor for sure. Second thing is alcohol. Alcohol will damage your nerves because it eliminates the myelin sheath, which is like think of your nerves as a copper wire, and the rubber insulation on the copper wire is your myelin sheath. It's a coating of fat that helps to shield your nerve impulses that are happening. And alcohol tends to weaken those and thin those out. Injury is also a thing that causes it. So people that are in wrecks and have had burns and things like that, they can damage the peripheral nerves and cause peripheral neuropathy. Certain nutrients, if your body is deficient in B12 and B6 are the huge ones, but certain nutrients will cause your body to have peripheral neuropathy. And people that have the peripheral neuropathy due to any of these reasons, again, they experience tingling, pins and needles, numbness, pain. It's a terrible thing to have. When I had, kind of still do, I like to say it in past tense because I'm doing so much better, but when I had it at its peak, I almost couldn't sleep because you'd be sleeping on my arm and it would go to sleep easily. Now I know most people's arms and limbs can go to sleep normally, and that happens if you lay on them wrong or they're wrapped around, blankets are wrapped around them or whatnot. But this felt like it was happening all the time. Even when I was driving down the road, I felt like my clothes were cutting off circulation to even my legs. So I felt it at one point through my whole body. It wasn't just my furthest from my brain, like your finger, your feet, probably your toes are the furthest thing from your brain. And so they're the furthest from the source. They're the first things that go from this peripheral neuropathy. If you feel it in your feet and legs and ankles, those are because they're the furthest from your brain. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my experience with peripheral neuropathy. Back at the end of the year of 2019, I decided to try a diet that was going to be high carbs and low fat, because I do a lot of diets. I try a lot of different things because weight loss is also something that I'm always into, and fitness and health. So I decided to do a whole bunch of rice and carbs and corn and just about any carb. At one point I was eating bananas and pouring sugar on the bananas. And virtually no fat. So I wouldn't consume any fat, even healthy fats, like even avocado or almonds or eggs or whatever anybody would consider healthy fats. I wasn't cooking with any fats. If I needed to cook something that was needed fat in the recipe, I would use a mildest amount of spray, and that's it, or preferably none. So at this point I was doing no fats and high carbs, drink and pop, any Sprite, anything that had a lot of sugar in it, I was fine with it. So shortly after the new year, I started to experience, and I was still drinking alcohol at that point, I started to experience, after a weekend of really going all out on alcohol, I started to experience these pins and needles constantly. They were very, very much focused on my left arm and left hand. So this hand would go to sleep and it would hurt. And the pins and needles were happening mainly in my pinky and the side of my left hand, which that's caused by your ulnar nerve. So I started looking into a lot of reasons of why that happened, but it was there mainly, but it wasn't just there. I noticed it sometimes in my upper back. Sometimes I noticed it in my legs. And it was very much after a weekend of drinking heavily. So I looked into it, and a buddy actually told me, he said, hey man, you might want to cut back on drinking. Drinking, it supposedly can cause that. And I didn't know about that. I looked into it, I researched it. That's when I came across alcoholic neuropathy. So even if you're somebody who doesn't have sugar issues in your body, if you've consumed a ton of alcohol, and especially binging on alcohol, so a couple of drinks with your dinner generally won't cause this kind of thing. But if you have, and which is what I did, spend your evening just blasting a 12-pack and then finish that off with some shots or a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, it's a lot of alcohol concentration in your body at once, and your body has trouble to metabolize it fast. It takes a long time, therefore it sits in your body for a long time overnight. Just imagine it like your nerves are marinating in alcohol, and the alcohol is thinning out that fat myelin sheath that helps insulate your nerves. It makes your nerves misfire. And so these sensations, a little bit of pressure on my elbow or a little pressure from sitting in my car would cause my feet to go numb and tingle, or sleeping on my side and my arm and my elbow or the right side, whichever side, would cause it to pins and needles, and it would wake me up. It was moderately painful. It was quite annoying, and I was really upset about it. It bothered me a lot. I did a ton of research, like I do these things, and came to the conclusion that it was probably the alcohol, because I've already had diabetes checked, and I don't have an A1C is good. My fasted blood sugar is good. Now, at the time, since I suspected that sugar and alcohol I know that that's a major contributor to peripheral neuropathy, I changed my diet back to a quote-unquote normal diet, and I normally do fish, egg, and then normal foods, healthy foods, and a lot of greens. So I changed that to hash browns the next day when I found all this research, and I ate up some eggs, and I cooked them in coconut oil, and I noticed that night that it was a lot better. So it wasn't cured by any means. I mean, that's not a cure, but it eased the symptoms. So that led me to looking deeper and trying to find more ways to alleviate peripheral neuropathy. So in doing more research, that led me to see what type of treatments there are for peripheral neuropathy. In some cases, peripheral neuropathy is, I feel like I'm saying that a lot. Peripheral neuropathy, it's not even easy to say. In some cases, it's permanent. Some people have a condition or a situation that keeps it where it doesn't cure. And that's unfortunate. Fortunately for me, in my situation, I don't believe that's the case. And I went to see a neurologist. I'll get to that. I did go to see a neurologist. But the treatment options are generally going to be medicines like gabapentin, Neurontin. There's others that also are used to treat fibromyalgia. They'll work on, in some cases, in peripheral neuropathy. There's creams. There's stop drinking. If alcohol is the contributor, which was for me a major contributor, stop drinking. Control your sugar through diet. So it's almost like a diabetic diet plan is going to be better for you if you people that have diabetes. Even if you don't, if you eat similar to what they eat, that helps control your blood sugar, which will keep that PA or PN, peripheral neuropathy, under control, or at least manageable. And that's the goal here. You don't want to go through life suffering all the time. And so a ketogenic diet is good for that, quite good for it, in fact. Low carb diets are really good for it. So that's another thing to consider. There's electrolysis that has shown to, like a TENS unit. I don't know if you know what that is. I'll probably show a picture of it. But a TENS unit through electrolysis helps, as well as exercise is good for peripheral neuropathy, and yoga, lighter exercises, Tai Chi, yoga, stretchings, or even weights or walking. Those things are good for it as well. To make the nerves kind of work out, they're good for it. So in doing all of this research, I decided to make a plan, an action plan for myself to get it, because it was consuming. Like, I was at one point, I was almost near tears thinking that I was permanently going to have this, and that led to a lot of guilt because, like I said, I went to a neurologist and I had him check me to see if my nutrition levels were okay, and I wasn't sure, and I already started proactively changing things in my life to try to make it go away, and I did get some better relief. It didn't go away, but the biggest jumps came from a couple of key things that I want to share with you. And the neurologist confirmed that I didn't have any permanent nerve damage, which was wonderful to hear. They did the tests, the nerve conductivity test. He did a lot of physical tests where he had me walk and touch my nose and do all this stuff. And I complained about the areas that I was having trouble with. But after doing some research and seeing what I could apply to my life, I did a lot of things actually. And I'm happy to say that right now, as of today, the result is I almost noticed none. It's almost completely resolved. The only thing that I still have is a little bit of numbness, but not to the point that it feels like it's gonna kill me or it's extremely bothersome. But it'll wake me up and I might toss a little bit in the middle of the night. But for the most part, I sleep throughout the whole night and only change positions 2 to 3 times. Before, I was waking up 6 to 8 times, and I'd get up and I'd even do something crazy like jump on the ground and do some push-ups or anything to try to push blood and normal nerve function back into the arm. It was just incredibly bothersome. But the things that I discovered and ended up implementing that seem to have really helped are as follows. I do have a TENS unit, so I started using the pads, and I would put it one pad here and one pad here, because the elbow, the ulnar nerve, which was where I was getting the majority of my pins and needles, is this part of your hand, and I would run those shocks through a couple of times in the evening, and it really seemed to help. I got acupuncture at my local place that he's a chiropractor and an acupuncturist and a muscle guy. But the acupuncture, I noticed a ton of relief the couple of weeks following acupuncture. Huge. I'd never had it before, but it really did make a lot of difference. I stopped drinking, as I said. I have had maybe, and by the way, this is how I know drinking was the contributor. In January, whenever I suspected it and stopped drinking, it got better. Since January until now, as of the taping of this video, I have drank maybe 3 times. So I did completely stop, but a couple of things triggered a night where I'd have a binge. And after each binge, after 3 of those binges that were spaced out well in different spaces, the next week, especially the next day, I had those pins and needles recur. So there's no doubt in my mind that alcohol is a major contributor, and for me, maybe even the only contributor, besides that high sugar, low fat thing, which I've done away with. Now I'm on a moderate fat, moderate protein, lower sugar. So I changed that. That's my diet. I do less refined sugar. I don't do completely zero refined sugar or zero. Like, I'll have crackers and chips every now and then, but far less of that. More healthier snacks like a cheese stick and some almonds or something like that. I do yoga and light exercise at this point. I've been doing yoga for a good bit, and I feel like that helps a lot. And yoga probably helps because it's in line with another thing that I've been doing, which is nerve flossing. There's several channels that have some really good, and I might even link those channels that I've used below. In fact, I will. I'll link the channels below that have helped me, but they've showed some nerve flosses for the specific target areas that you're having trouble with. And for me, I watched a lot of ulnar nerve flosses, but there was also a couple for my sciatica nerve floss in my rear that I did, because, as I said, I have a local chiropractor, different one, but he used a direct elbow and really massaged my sciatic nerve to try to help, and it didn't help. It actually damaged my sciatica and caused some numbness in my feet. That went away as it slowly healed. And I had done, a side note, I'd done research and shows that your nerves, your peripheral nerves heal a very small amount. I mean, like it takes a couple of weeks to months to fully heal. And I feel like I'm well on my way of that because again, those recurrences are getting smaller and smaller and better and better. I feel like it's these things that I've implemented. I started supplementing to make sure that I have enough B12. The neurologist did the blood test and said that my B12 was average. B6, all of that. I started supplementing B12. I supplemented lion's mane. I supplemented ashwagandha and omega-3. So all of those 4 things is kind of the regiment that I do. I do a B12 spray every day that I've showed you in a prior video. I started taking ashwagandha about 1,200 milligrams a day, only for 30 days. I don't want to be on anything for life. I'll probably be on the B12 spray for life. But the ashwagandha was just temporary because it's purportedly will help nerve regrowth, just like lion's mane. They're 2 of the substances that the supplements I've looked into that show that they help nerve regrowth, nerve function. And again, I'm not 100% sure if they did or didn't, but I'm doing far better than I was months ago. So, really when it comes down to it is I think that if you pay attention to your lifestyle habits and you try to look at what you're doing wrong, especially as you age and your body becomes less resilient, you might be able to point out I knew that binge drinking was bad for me. So there's no surprise that it was causing damage to my body and that it was causing me problems. I'm glad that I discovered it and took control of it in time. I feel thankful that I didn't do any permanent damage. If you have permanent damage, I'm sorry. I can know what it's like. It's terrible. Peripheral neuropathy is a terrible condition. But if these things that I've done for my treatment can help you, give it a shot. I hope that it does. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I constantly talk about weight loss, hernias, health treatments, things that I try. I subject myself to a lot of self-experimentation. So, and I'll post those videos as I come across new things. So, hope you have a good one. See you next time.